Hello, school board. My name is Guy McLaury, and I am here to inform you on the state and federal policies that have been affecting English language learners in California. These policies are important to understand because out of all the 50 states, California has the largest ELL population. 1.2 million students in California are English language learners. This is almost 20% of the student population here in California. These students are identified by home surveys that are sent out when the child starts public school. They are also identified by English language proficiency assessments that are given to students whose primary home language is not English. Once English language learners are identified, they are then put into two very structured and immersive programs. These two programs are, number one, designated English language development, which is direct instruction of English language standards, and the other program is the integrated English language development, which is where English is embedded seamlessly into all content areas. Throughout the child's academic career, they must take a state test known as the LPAC that scores them on their English proficiency. They are required to be at grade level English proficiency or higher to pass the test. Once they pass the LPAC, they are reclassified and they are no longer labeled as English language learners. For 2 years after having passed the LPAC, the student is then monitored to ensure that they have not regressed in English proficiency. Now, let me take you back to the year of 1954 when the United States of America finally desegregated schools. In the Supreme Court ruling of Brown versus Board of Education, it became illegal to separate students based on race. This case was the catalyst to teaching ELL students whose primary skin color is not always white. Brown versus Board was a gateway case that made possible for other monumental Supreme Court cases, one of them being Lau versus Nichols. This Supreme Court case took place in 1974 in the San Francisco School District. This district had a large population of Chinese American students, most of whom could not speak English. The school approached this dilemma with a sink or swim approach. They claimed that the students, even though they could not speak English, were given an equitable education because they had the same access to teachers, classrooms, textbooks, and all that stuff, just as any of the other students in the school had. As you can tell, this approach failed, and out of the Lau versus Nichols case, it became illegal to not give direct English support to non-English speaking students. So, the Lau versus Nichols case was for Chinese Americans what the Serna versus Portales case was for Hispanic students. The Serna versus Portales Supreme Court case stated that the New Mexico school districts must tailor their education to better serve their Spanish surname students, which is their Hispanic students. In both cases, in their own ways, it ensured that ELL students received the proper education needed for them to succeed. Out of these three cases grew several federal guidelines that all states must follow when teaching English language learners. For example, all public school districts must identify and assess potential EL students. And once they are identified, the school districts must then provide language assistance to EL students. These districts must also staff EL programs. On top of this, EL students must have equal access to extracurricular activities such as AP classes and international baccalaureate courses. Now, the question really is, what can we do? How do we advocate for the educational rights of ELLs? Well, just as the Lau versus Nichols case and the Serna versus Portales case shows, we need to advocate for clear procedures that identify English language learners and clear procedures on how to support them. We can't allow our ELLs to slip through the cracks. Another thing is school districts should also be required to hold annual professional development courses that not only inform teachers on the programs that California uses, but also teach teachers how to embed English language development skills into all of our content areas. And finally, the last thing school districts should do is raise the English learner family voice. The family members of ELLs should know the laws that work for their kids. It really is true that it takes a village. So if we are looking out for the best interests of ELLs, we should involve all voices, including the family members. Thank you so much for your time.